Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
You doing
Hello.
that? Now,
I said hello too quickly.
that's okay. We'll fix it in post.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Weissman, and you're watching or listening to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
Woo-hoo. The podcast that makes you wish time travel was real so you could skip ahead 45 minutes and miss all of our bad jokes. You guys might recognize our guest today from his work in Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 3. He was George McFly, but not just Back to the Future. That's not the only things that you might recognize him from. Jeffrey Weissman is our guest today. Hello, Jeffrey.
I don't know how you're going to recognize me. I wore a lot of makeup in those films.
Well, this is true. But that's not the only thing we want to talk to you about today. You've had quite an extensive career outside of Back to the Future, and
I'm a legend in my own mind.
That's right. Well, you've assembled a nice resume as a character actor. You've been all over the place, doing a whole lot of different things. So we're anxious to kind of talk to you about those things as well.
I have directors say that to me all the time. They say, "You're all over the place. Can you just bring it in?"
That's not fun.
We might be talking about different types of all over the place, but that's fine too. So I don't want to talk a whole lot about this, but I do have to ask you a little bit about Back to the Future and taking over the role as George McFly in Back to the Future 2 and 3 and how that all went down, because I know there was a lot of drama that was kind of surrounding that with Crispin and his exit from the role.
Yeah, he's a drama queen, I tell you. So it was, in my opinion, very unfortunate. I mean, it was fortunate for me to get the work, but I loved Crispin in the first film. And yeah, I had worked with him on a film before he got that film and thought he was a fascinating actor, got his number, tried to stay in touch, was pretty friendly. And even when I got the call to come in to interview to be his photo double, I called him up and said, "Hey, I need work. Say a good word for me if you remember me, Crispin," And didn't hear back from him until, of course, part 3 came out and he was ready to sue because of the makeup they put me in.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I didn't know about that they didn't have the permission to use his life mask makeup.
Oh, okay.
It was a very uncomfortable situation for me, and it was uncomfortable at the beginning. We started right off shooting the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and people were uncomfortable. They even referred to me as Crispin. It was weird. And producers were telling me stories, how he made trouble on the first film, not hitting his marks or disappearing when they needed him, or not letting them production cut his hair, where he flipped out once when he fell asleep in the makeup artist's chair, and Ken Chase was trimming his hair, and Crispin flipped, the stories are pretty bizarre. He and Leah had rehearsed in character and painted together, and one day Crispin brought in this painting that they made together and told Zemeckis, we want this in the McFly home on the wall. And Zemeckis was like, "No, I've got art directors who have already designed." No. And so he blew his top at that. Crispin, I think, is actually a very fine, yet eccentric artist. He's a very creative man, a bit neurotic. And I think it's really unfortunate because he did such a great job in the first film. I personally was proud of him because I knew him. Right. And then to find out that, in my mind, when I was up for it, I thought they needed George in multiple places at the same time. That's why I was being fitted for the makeup effects and the body cast. And I figured, it was one of those things. And when I was told in the 11th hour Crispin was not coming back, the contract negotiations broke down, I couldn't fathom how they were going to do the film without him. And then it all went on my shoulders. I was like, right. And they also cut back the role a great deal. They intended to torture Crispin because he couldn't hit his mark. So the two Bobs decided they'd have his back out from a car that had fallen out of the sky while George was playing golf. And so he wrenched his back and they put him in this ortholev and hang him upside down. So he'd be on these rails and he'd have to hit his marks. Yeah, so I endured that. I think I'm still owed some stunt pay. I don't think I got any stunt pay for that.
I was going to ask you how that impacted your work, but that sounds like that had impacted your work quite a bit.
It was pretty hard. It was pretty hard, but I rolled with it, and you know, the days, one of those weeks in the McFly kitchen and household, there was a 19-hour day, a 21-hour day, a 26-hour-long day, often without 8 hours turnaround. It was pretty grueling, and then also the makeup full front for young George, for 17-year-old George, didn't really look right. Profile looked great. I'll bring that up and show you. But the full front didn't. So they took footage of Crispin from the first film and cut it in with my work.
Okay.
And when Crispin called after part 3 came out and tried to, you know, get me on his side to see how they mistreated him, and he said they used that footage and mixed it with, you know, my work with your work, and we're only going to pay me scale. And I was like, that doesn't sound quite right for a film that was the highest grossing film of 1985, the first one.
Right.
You know, right. You know, I think they're up to $1 billion now, literally.
Or something. Yeah, it's up there for sure.
And, you know, sure, maybe you don't get along with the guy, but don't treat him like dirt. You know, it was pretty upsetting. Mm-hmm. So, you know, needless to say, he sued everyone, and eventually they settled out of court. I think before they even went to court, for $750,000.
Okay.
But Crispin's still upset, and Bob Gale is still at him, and I'm still caught in the middle of this, saying, let's all just hold hands and do something for Michael's charity. Come on.
Right?
30 years ago.
Can we sing a little kumbaya here?
Yeah, it is over 30 years now. And I for the last big anniversary, 2015, I put together, as I mentioned just before we went on the air, a band, a Back to the Future cast member band called Mr. Fusion, that Don Fullove's my bass player, and I play guitar. Harry Waters Jr. is our lead singer, and Mark McClure, who played Dave McFly, is our drummer. And we got it together mainly for a cruise called the Back to the Future Cruise to end Parkinson's. And we had about 50 fans come and join us. I didn't have a lot of knowledge how to produce a cruise at that venture. I know a lot now. but we ended up raising a little over $10,000 for Michael's charity. So I feel good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Play Johnny Be Good?
We sure did. And
there you go. You almost have to, don't you?
Yeah, we had 5 or 6 songs in our set, and those fans had a great time at our Enchantment Under the Sea dance on board. And I had Dean Cundy, the cinematographer of all 3 films, on board, as well as Kevin Pike and Andrew Probert, who were on the Time Machine DeLorean special effects or design teams.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then we piped some people in. Frances Lee McCain, who played Stella Baines, Lorraine's mom. Mm-hmm. She at the last minute couldn't come on the cruise, so we actually got her on video and did a nice interview there, and we had a lot of really fun events during the cruise.
Hopefully, that's cool. So one more question for you about your time as George, and actually you kind of touched on it real quick about the prosthetics. How long were you in the chair each day to become George? Because dead on, you guys are not twins. So I mean, they're with the prosthetics and all. How much time did you spend each day to become George McFly?
At first, it was a little over 4 hours a day, and then we got it down to maybe 3.5 hours. I usually, if I needed to be on the set by 9 in the morning, I'd have to be in the makeup chair by 4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And then an hour at the end of the day to to take it off. So here's that. This is a Polaroid of the profile of the young George makeup. Is that sharing on the screen okay?
Yeah, that's great. Wow. So that's you in makeup right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you think it was Crispin?
I did, actually.
That's why they didn't want Crispin to see my pictures. It was odd. I had And Bob Gale even says, no, that never happened. And here I'm in a body cast ready to do and this was cut from the film when old George actually spins upright for pizza in 2015. And while we're waiting to do that effect, I'm in the body cast, and Spielberg came over and said, so Crispin, I see you got your $1 million after all. And I was like, oh my God, I'm saving them some money, aren't I? And it was.
So more of a little silly question here. I love how you did George McFly in the Back to the Future. And if you could play that character in any other universe, which universe would that be?
Any other? Well, I like the way you introduced with the red shirts going back to the. I'm glad I'm wearing blue. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but I don't know if George would fit in there. George would probably fit in. Oh gosh, with something more intellectual and yet science fiction-y. Oh gosh, Good Will Hunting. No, George probably be in Clerks. No, I'm. Get back to you on that. Let me meditate on it, and I would think on where George should be.
All right.
So, unlike other hosts, Tim, I personally love musical theater. Love musical theater. So I found out that you had played Igor in Young Frankenstein the Musical, which I didn't even know existed.
Yes.
And
yes, Mel made it into a musical, which is just delightful. And ironically, when I was 14 years old, I had heard that Mel was shooting a movie in my neighborhood in Santa Monica in California. And I walked home instead of taking the bus home, and going through the promenade, I started seeing extras, I guess, in Victorian evening wear. I was like, oh, we must be around here somewhere. And there was a tall, large gentleman whose mustache was flapping. I said, excuse me, sir, your mustache is coming. He said, oh, is it? Who are you? I said, well, I'm an actor. He says, really? What have you done? And I said, well, I was in Dark Moon. My junior high and high school credits, I started listing in community theater. And he says, really? You want to meet Mel? I was like, yeah.
Yes.
So he takes me under wing, and we go to the Mayfair Music Hall where they're shooting the Putting on the Ritz number.
Oh my goodness.
And nice.
The first person I meet is Marty Feldman. And he's in his street clothes, and he's wearing a man bag, which I wear now. Not his, but I have my own. And I was just I thought, oh, that is so cool. I've never seen a man here in 1973, I guess it was, wearing a man bag, a Merce. And I thought that was cool. And then I saw Peter Boyle in the creature makeup, and then Roy, this extra, took me in and says, hey, we're going to meet Mel. And so we find Mel, and Roy says, Mel, you got to meet this kid. He's got credits, and I got no time for kids.
Oh.
So it was my first time meeting Mel Brooks. And I've met Mel over the years a few times. My Marx Brothers team auditioned for Men in Tights, and then I met Mel again with Anne and Dom DeLuise, who was a good friend, at the Silent Movie House, and always had a great time. A very naturally funny man, and Bancroft was just delightful. Anyway, so coming full circle, I was offered the role of Igor in a production in Sonoma County up here north of San Francisco, where I live. And it kind of felt like, wow, I can now do tribute to Marty, who I just adored in that role.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen the outtakes?
Yes.
They're just priceless.
They are.
How he came up with biting the head off a fox off Madeline Kahn's shoulders. And anyway, so I worked my tail off. The musical numbers are wonderful in that piece. I got to sing the Transylvania Mania and tap dance, which I hadn't tap danced since I was at the American Theater in '81. Yeah, I think I was in about 9 or 10 numbers, singing and doing comedy.
So what is it between performing live and performing for the screen? Which do you prefer, and why?
Everyone asks me that, and I have the same answer. I don't have a preference necessarily. I love the craft and teamwork of making movies and television shows, and I love being in the audience watching what we did together as a group affect the audience or affect me. Well, you know, I'm like, oh wow, I'm crying and I'm doing that, you know, or I'm laughing, and I created that little comedy moment. Where although the instant gratification in live theater is also pretty incomparable.
It is.
I spent many years doing improv also in Los Angeles. I was part of the varsity first players at LA Theater Sports. Out of those ranks came most of the players from Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Okay.
And, you know, Brad Sherwood and Greg Proops and Michael McShane and Wayne Brady, we all played together. And the instant gratification for, first of all, trusting your teammates that you're going to get saved when you're stepping over the cliff into the abyss of the unknown and trying to tell a story and keep it on track without gagging and being, you know, it's a really hard muscle to develop and flex. And when it's working, it's like an out-of-body experience. It's really fantastic. And you just go with it and do your craft the way you know that you are to do it right for it not to fail. And then even when it fails, though, you embrace it and the audience is still there with you. So there's nothing quite like that. And then with scripted plays, theater, when everything goes well, then you've been rehearsing for 5 weeks or however 3 weeks, and you've made the choices that are the best choices, and it all comes together and the chemistry is there and the audience is with you. There's nothing better. So to answer your question, I like them both.
Yeah. I understand that. I haven't performed in a musical since I was in high school, but it was so much fun. And you do get that audience, that immediate audience feedback. And that is one of the best things about performing live. I love that feeling.
It is really very special. And I know musical junkies. I mean, people who have to do it. They know they can't make a living at it, but they still are compelled to do it. I have a dear friend, in fact, the gentleman who played Dr. Frankenstein in my production, he's always doing a musical, always doing some theater. He can't stop it. And he has a completely different life, day job, because he can't make a living doing the theater.
Right.
But he loves it.
Sounds like podcasting.
It is very similar. It is very similar.
I'm getting my Yeti microphone. I'm going to be probably starting my own. I don't know.
There you go. Might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what all the cool kids are doing.
Well, hey, well, we're trying to be cool. You know, sometimes, Jeff, when we talk to people who have had such distinguished careers as your own, and with all the different roles that you've been a part of,
it's a distinguished career. There's nothing going on.
Well, it's a kind of extinguished for everybody right now. So, but we're sure that you have many memories that stand out over the time of your career. If you don't mind, what's one story that jumps out of your memory banks that you could share with our listeners?
One story from which project?
Whatever, your choice, dealer's choice.
Can you go down the resume or something and say, bing, you know, with your eyes closed? And because I got a story for every project, and generally a dozen stories for most of them. Okay.
Let's see. How about Pale Rider? You got any stories from Pale Rider?
Oh, yeah. So I had a very aggressive agent who pursued me. A couple of years before Pale Rider, I was studying at the American Conservatory Theater and San Francisco State University, and fell into an opportunity to screen test for the lead in a film called The Genius that Martin Brest was the director of. And during the process, I got picked out of 500 guys to get a screen test. And the film went into turnaround, and it got back on track, and I had my screen test. Meanwhile, the name changed to War Games. And I tested with Ali Sheedy. And this agent, when she learned from Martin Brest, the original director, that I was his favorite for the role, she pursued me. She had opened her own boutique agency in Beverly Hills out of New York, William Morris, where she came. And I signed with her, and she was very aggressive. She opened a lot of doors for me. I was a bit of a hot item for a year or so there. And Matthew kept beating me out of roles. He beat me, of course, and Dana Carvey and Eric Stoltz and various other guys who tested for War Games. Then a year later, it was apparently between me and him for Lady Hawk. And I had done Renaissance fairs and so on and so. I was ready to rock and roll my medieval, and I don't even think I went that way. I still haven't seen that film. I just saw War Games last year for the first time. I thought he did a good job. Anyway, I digress. So this agent used to call around the studios, and one day she called Warner Brothers and said, "What do you got going on that we don't know about that's not in the breakdowns?" And they said, "Well, we got something in a Clint Eastwood film that I think we've got the talent in our files. We'll find the talent." And she goes, "Well, describe it, and maybe I've got someone." So the description she thought I fit. And what had turned out, Sean Penn's brother, Chris Penn, who was a marvelous actor, had met Clint at a party in Malibu and said, I want to do a film with you. And Clint sent Chris the Pale Rider script, and Chris threw it back at Clint because Clint was offering him the role of Eddie Conway, this nice guy, gold panner. And Chris said, I want to play bad guy. And so Clint took Chris to his word and cast him as LaHood's son, the bad guy who attempts raping Sidney Penny's character in the film. And so the actor who was cast as Teddy Conway moved into Eddie, and Teddy became open. So I got the call from my agent, you're going in on this, and I found that I needed to cry on cue. So I didn't want to leave anything to chance. I want to co-star with Clint Eastwood in the film. And I knew I had my fantasy charging Meisner technique. I had my subjective personalization technique, which is a little Strasbergian emotional recall. I had my just Zen technique of going with it if it's well written. I even had a lock of my grandmother's hair in my pocket, who was really the only one in my family who really encouraged me to do my acting. My parents did not want me to be an actor. Anyway, so I knew that I needed to cry on cue, and the producer put me on tape for Clint, and I was able to cry no problem, keeping the lines coming and keeping the action real. And sure enough, that was on a Friday. On a Monday, I was on my way to the location in Idaho to shoot the film.
Nice.
So that's one story. I mean, I've got tons of stories. We had Michael Moriarty quit the film. Carrie Snodgrass wanted to quit the film. There are a lot of good stories. The reasons are actually Michael got 3 fingers broken by the Cowboys when he went to town.
Oh man!
They were messing around and didn't stick to the fight choreography, and he was trying to compose the symphony. So it took Clint a few days to get Michael back. Carrie and Michael and Clint all butted heads because she's a really strong actress with very clear ideas of how her character was, and they butted heads over that. And I'd calm her down. We had mutual friends, so Carrie and I, wonderful, God rest her, Carrie Snodgrass had such great talent, and I'd calm her down, and we kept her on the shoot, and everything went well. Strawberry daiquiris helped.
Oh, I bet.
Strawberry daiquiris help most things.
Alcohol can be your friend.
Yeah, we got snowed in. The blizzard snowed us in during shooting Pale Rider. The casts being holed up for 3 days on per diem got pretty crazy.
I'm sure.
And I remember I was having lunch with Clint in a blizzard. Shortly after we got there, he fired the caterers. And we're on a location on the top of a mountain. And the new caterer, I guess to impress Clint and everyone, served steak and lobster the first day for lunch. And here I'm having a steak and lobster with Clint in the middle of a blizzard. This is so surreal. It was nice weather, Clint. And he goes, I didn't expect it to be snowing in October. Yeah. Anyway, lots of fun stories. There are more, so have me back.
Oh, absolutely.
So there are many, I'm going to call them nerdiverses out there. What are some of your favorite Hollywood universes that have come to life?
Oh my.
There are so many.
I'm really a easy kind of going guy for entertainment. I love being entertained. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I love the Star Wars, of course, and I've made a lot of friends with the ILM crew members, from the model shops to the effects people to camera cinematographers and such. So I'm very always excited about those universes, both the sci-fi, just, I remember when I was 11 years old, I accidentally kicked sand on this guy on the beach, and when he sat up and lowered his glasses and said, excuse me, it was Leonard Nimoy. And I flipped. I ran home to tell my parents I kicked sand on on Spock. And then about, I guess 7 years ago, I was a guest at the London Film and Comic Con, and James Tolkien, who played Principal Strickland, and I were having a break in the green room, and the Star Trek name was Leonard Nimoy. Leonard walked in, and he spotted James and came right to our table and sat down and chatted with us for a better part of an hour, because Leonard and James had worked on a play directed by Otto Preminger.
Oh, neat.
In the early 70s. And so, and they reminisced how Otto, whatever cast he was directing, whether film, television, or live, he'd pick a whipping boy or girl. And he picked Leonard Nimoy, which was a big mistake. Leonard wouldn't stand for it. He got up and walked out. And so I'm like in heaven listening to James Tolkien and Leonard Nimoy do their impressions of Otto Preminger. German accent, and you're not going to do this. Anyway, I can't and then I finally got to apologize to Leonard Nimoy for kicking sand on him in 1969 or 68, whatever.
Did you remember having sand kicked on him?
Oh, he didn't remember.
Well, see, clearly you didn't kick enough, so.
But he was kind enough to autograph a picture to me. So
that's fantastic.
So cool.
God rest
That would
him.
be so cool. So in researching your roles, because you have an extensive history, that you were in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and I Want to Hold Your Hand when you were 20?
Younger. Yeah, I was just out of high school. My parents could no longer tell me I couldn't be an actor. I signed up to be, background, and I Want to Hold Your Hand was one of the first ones I was in. Zemeckis directing, but he couldn't do. We were in these big crowd scenes. I was a Ringo fan outside the Beatles hotel that Wendy Joe and Eddie Deason company are trying to break in, and it was about 100 and some odd degrees in the Burbank backlot. Oof. And we're wrapped up as if it's New York in January, and the extras are dropping like flies. And Zemeckis, I don't know if he had confidence directing large groups, so he brought in a friend of his to direct us. So I guess it was my first time being directed by Spielberg.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So going into this, were you already a Beatles fan? And then
God.
You were a teenager and they were the Beatles, so it kind of makes sense.
Well, I growing up with an older brother and sister who had to get the newest Beatles releases as soon as they came out, or stay up late to watch them on the Ed Sullivan Show. I remember all that stuff, and I was a big fan. And then on Sgt. Pepper's, which was really odd. I'm actually in 4 different scenes in that. I played Strawberry Fields' brother when the band is going off in the hot air balloon. I'm in the Earth, Wind, and Fire Got to Get You Into My Life crowd scene. And then I'm, of course, one of those Boy Scouts being brainwashed by Alice Cooper. Steve Martin turns the... Anyway, so I'm kind of... I think it took us 3 days to shoot that scene with Alice, the Sun King bit that he does. And he's on video for the first 2 days, and there's dancers on either side, and we're doing some dance moves. And I remember this very lovely blonde-haired dancer I'm actually kind of getting a crush on, and I make friends with her. And on the 3rd day, I go up to her, and we finally have Alice live. And that morning, I go up, and that's Cheryl. How are you? She goes, Jeffrey. Oh, I want you to meet my husband, Alice. Oh, nice to meet you. I remember also the first day of shooting on that. It was 7:30 in the morning or something. I smelled pot. I don't, it's legal here in California, so hopefully I can talk about it on your show. But I followed my nose. I'm 18 years old. I'm following, 18 years old, I smell pot. I followed my nose to Barry Gibb. I'm like, you're smoking pot this early in the morning? He goes, well, yeah, you want some? Of course I'm 18. Yeah, there's tobacco in that. Ah! You know, that's how we smoke it. And then Robin comes over and says, look, we just got #1 on the Billboard charts with News of the World, Children of the World, whatever that album was. I was the first to congratulate them.
Awesome.
So
How cool is that? That's an awesome story. All right.
So cool.
All right. So now for many people, they say that the art of teaching is something that speaks to their soul and they feel inclined to share what they know with others. Now on your bio on IMDb, it told us that you teach the art of improvisation, developing characters on stage for television and film acting. So what was it about teaching that made you want to be a teacher of acting?
Well, first of all, out of necessity for a paycheck, but
fair enough.
More importantly, it's thrilling for me to learn as the students learn, and I've been through so many different kind of wanting to test, dip my foot in the water of different techniques, and I've found many techniques that work for me and many that didn't, and others that I felt were being taught as a cookie cutter, one size fits all. And I have an approach where I believe that, you, Tim, and you, Nick, and you, Kathleen, are not wired the same. And your life experiences may feed in. Some you may have blocked off if we're trying to do, say, a Strasbergian emotional recall, Stanislavski-based technique, or if we're doing a fantasy charging up might work better for you because you can't do the personalization or sense memory because it's too traumatic. Or, there are many different ways of getting the same results. A lot of directors will be result oriented and not know how to speak in actor terms. So I teach directors how to speak in actor terms. I speak and teach to actors how to direct themselves in case a director says, I need you to cry here, but doesn't give you the conditions to get there. Okay. And an actor needs to know that stuff. And I've helped a lot of actors kickstart their craft and then take it on. I have mentored actors who are working in Hollywood now or continue in whatever local theater that they want to take their careers to, whatever they're doing. So for me, it's exciting to know that if someone I've mentored or nurtured becomes successful, or others that I know have become members of a team and have moved on from acting and are producing or writing. So it's kind of a win-win because I very rarely get bad feedback on my instruction.
Cool. So you get the paycheck and you get the joy of helping somebody else, reach for their dream.
As soon as I'm vaccinated.
There you go.
Definitely.
There you go.
I finally figured out how to do Zoom teaching, where I can now have people do their monologues, or maybe if they're with other people, do a scene, record it like we're recording here, and then stop it and come back on and play it in another window and then break it down for them. That's cool to figure that out.
All right, cool.
There has been quite the learning curve the last year with Zoom. I understand.
I had my kind of artistic life was saved by a group out of London called The Show Must Go Online. I've done 2 shows with them. One, I played Doc Brown in Get Thee Back to the Future, as if Back to the Future was written by Shakespeare.
Oh, cool.
So I'm a Shakespearean.
Oh, nice.
We shot it here. I did the slide from the clock tower across the screen here. My wife was the camera operator, so I'm climbing on the floor, which I'm actually, so it looks like I'm actually climbing up the building to the clock tower. Anyway, she was my wardrobe mistress, my prop master. Anyway, and then I played Sir Toby Belch in Twelfth Night. What they did was the entire Shakespearean canon over the course of the summer during the pandemic. And it was fantastic for me to work on that. I felt like I was being creative, and they learned how to pass props through the camera. So if one of you grab, or do fights through the camera, or how to really work.
Oh, that's cool.
There you go.
You changed how it works.
Nick, pass it back, Nick. Yeah, thank you. See, and now I've done an improv show, in fact, just recently with Binge Watch is the name of the company. And it was really great. We did some passing through the lens, even kissing, it was no tongue. So it's a necessity. Also, a lot of things for the fans. I've had Argentina, France, Japan, Italy, doing Zooms for the fans, and a lot of them are fundraisers. Hello, fundraisers for Parkinson's.
There you go.
Awesome.
So
There's
what was
fundraisers too?
What was the name of the play again? And the Shakespearean style one?
Yeah, you can find them on YouTube. The show must go online. TSMGO for short. And they did all of Shakespeare's canon in, what was it, 36 weeks or something.
Okay.
And you can see me in Twelfth Night and Get Thee Back to the Future. Ian Drescher adapted Back to the Future as if Shakespeare had written it. He also did Star Wars and Mean Girls in the same fashion.
Mean Girls as Shakespeare sounds fantastic.
They are quite exceptional. And
oh
then,
my gosh.
The show must go online uses actors' talent from around the world, can be in the productions. So I had, actors from around the world I'm working with, and really remarkable breakthroughs in casting. There's some example there, Macbeth is almost all female or non-binary.
Wow.
And,
okay.
And it brought new meanings to the relationships in the play that I'd never seen before. It was just dynamically wonderful. Their Hamlet was a female Hamlet. They really great work. And I'm working with actors who are trained either at the National Theatre or the Royal Academy. For me, it was very exciting.
Yeah, I bet.
Awesome.
And some are even laymen. Some are even non-actors that they would even bring in who did fine jobs.
That's so cool. So also in looking through your IMDb, I was surprised how many TV shows that you had been in that I'm like, oh, wait, right. I know that. I've seen him in that, including Saved by the Bell, Diagnosis Murder, which I actually just bought on DVD and it's going to be delivered like next week. I'm so excited. I'm such a Diagnosis Murder nerd.
Very sad to see the passing of Dustin Diamond. I played Screech's guru, the high geek.
Yes.
In the rockumentary episode. And then we put together in another film later on, an indie called our feature presentation.
So if you could have picked any of those smaller roles to become part of a bigger narrative, which one?
Of those television roles?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be a reoccurring regular on that Scarecrow and Mrs. King episode where I played Scotty, the valet Parker, at the Scarecrow's headquarters. And he was an amateur filmmaker. And it seemed to me like it was a pretty good possibility. That episode, in fact, was the second highest rated episode of that first season of Scarecrow. The highest one was when they finally kissed. And it didn't pan out. I had been also cast as a regular in another series called Legmen, and they kept pushing my character. And by the time I was to go work, the series got canceled. So those sometimes, they get. It would have been nice to be recurring on Saved by the Bell as Screech's guru, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be more like Kung Fu with nerd style.
Nerds need Kung Fu.
That's right.
And I love, I was very nerdy growing up. I'm still nerdy as an adult. And I love going to the fan cons. I spend a lot of my time at the fan cons taking pictures of all the cosplay. I have this wonderful video of an 8-year-old kid that built his own Jabba the Hutt outfit.
Oh,
nice.
Cool.
Oh, it's just, I'll send it to you. And other even pro cosplayers, the costumes and the skeezicks and different fabrications they made are awesome making, jaw dropping. That's what I'm looking for. I love that stuff.
Cosplay is pretty cool.
And I had one fan finally make the 2015 George McFly.
Oh, that's
nice.
awesome.
I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So let's go back to that question from earlier. Which universe would George McFly be in?
Yes. Which would he be in? Once again, he was real into the comics as a kid. So maybe Amazing Tales.
All right.
Amazing Stories. Didn't Spielberg do a TV series called Amazing Stories? So maybe George would fit in there. I could see George fit in really well in Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Crispin would have fit right in. I'm sorry, George. We share it. Yes.
It happens. I have to admit that this can probably be edited out and post if necessary. I texted my brother letting him know who we were interviewing today, and he goes, "Oh, did you guys try to get Crispin Glover and couldn't afford him?" Like, oh, nice.
But
Nice, friend.
You're not got an appearance fee coming? Yeah.
Yes, right. As soon as we get paid from our sponsors, yes.
My first co-star role was on George Miller's episode, the remake of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet in the Twilight Zone movie. And first of all, I was shocked that they were going to continue shooting that film after the terrible accident. But 3 months later, my agent called and got me the interview and found George Miller, who directed Road Warrior and Mad Max, coming off those highs, was just a delightful man. And we got along very well. He was just taken in by Hollywood. It was his first Hollywood project, and he had John Lithgow and just a stellar ensemble cast with Larry Cedar from Deadwood as the gremlin tearing the wing apart.
Yes.
So that was very exciting for me for my first co-star role to be on that set. And I love technology, and Alan Davio, who just passed away due to COVID a year ago, our cinematographer, shared the responsibilities with Garrett Brown, who invented the Steadicam. And it was so fantastic to see this 65-pound camera on this guy who's running up and down the aisles of the airplane fuselage, working his tail off, getting these amazing shots. And it was a real treat to be on that shoot.
I'm sure.
That'd be cool.
So a little bit of your, oh no, what is that word?
If you don't know, we don't know.
The on the spot acting.
Improv.
Thank you. I can't
Improv.
believe I forgot the improv word.
You didn't remember improv on the spot. Okay, good to know. The irony is pretty steep there.
You get stuck in the head, you get roadblocked.
Yeah.
Age helps that.
So if animals could talk, which one do you think would be the funniest?
Sloths?
Sloths.
Yeah. I love them in Zootopia.
I love
I could
That works.
Right.
Works for me. All right, Jeffrey, we've come to the point in our show where we like to subject our guests to a quiz.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm out of here.
But yeah, he's gone. But
you scared him away, Tim.
But if you stick around for the quiz,
you could win prizes.
You get to win prizes.
Oh boy!
So we can't pay you scale, but we will send you prizes if you get. So there's going to be 5 questions. They're all based on
a scale. All right.
They're all based on Back to the Future 2. Okay.
Well, that shouldn't be difficult.
I hope not. So out of the 5 questions, if you get 3 right, we're going to send you one of our Red Shirt Widows and Orphans coffee mugs.
Nice.
If you get 4 questions right, we're going to send you the coffee mug And also this book, Custodians of the Cosmos, written by Drayton Allen, our page founder. And so the nice thing about the book is that's where the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund comes from. It's all about a man who wants to join Starfleet, can't, so he rejoins as a custodian to boldly clean up after those who boldly just went. So that's the premise of the book. So if you get 3 right, you get the coffee mug. If you get 4 right, you get the mug in the book.
And no red shirt?
Well, no, but a red mug.
Bring it on.
So if you get less, however, if you get less than 2 or less than 3, you only get 2 right.
I owe you.
We take your picture and we make a meme out of you. We call it a fun sequence. Do you agree to these terms, sir?
Can I check with my agent?
Sure.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right, Nick. Oh, these are all multiple choice, by the way. So
Great.
all right, go ahead, Nick.
What is the name of Biff's grandson? Spiff, Cliff, or Griff?
Are you kidding?
No.
Well, he could be Spiffy Griff, or he could be Grumpy Spiffy. No, well, okay, Griff.
Yeah, it's Griff.
Yes, you are correct.
I've had 30 years to study this.
Well, we were kind of banking on that.
So when Doc, Marty, and Jennifer land in the alley after reaching Hill Valley in 2015, Doc tells Marty to get out and change his clothes. Marty comments that it's raining, and Doc says, wait, blank more seconds. How many seconds did Doc tell Marty to wait? 15, 10, or 5?
I'm going to, I think it's 5.
You are correct.
Yes,
You've had
it was
30
5.
years to study this and also 30 years to forget things, but
Instant blow dry.
In Back to the Future 2, why is George McFly hanging upside down? Do you want
This
the
seems
multiple
like a
choice?
This seems like a softball since you've already said the answer earlier on. So
Is it an unfortunate back injury? It's the future, or George just like to be inverted?
There isn't a all of the above. Oh, well, I told you the real reason earlier that Crispin couldn't hit his marks, but and in the paperback version, a flying car fell out of the sky, causing George to wrench his back while out on the golf course.
So yeah. All right. So unfortunate back injury it is.
Unfortunate back injury.
Ortholev.
All right. Who was responsible for George McFly's death in the alternate 1985? Biff, George, or Doc Brown?
And wasn't that on St. Patrick's Day?
I don't know. You're the one who was in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I believe it was.
So I'm pretty sure that this is a trick question, because had Doc not invented the time machine, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Correct.
But Biff is the one who shot him in the back. But
Also correct.
I don't know that there were any witnesses. I mean, he says he does it, but I don't know that he did. Well, Tom's too nice of a guy, really.
All right. So yeah, it was Biff Tannen.
It was Biff.
And that earned you the book and the cup. So,
Oh, wait, I have one for you guys.
okay.
What was the original way Marty returned from 55 to 85? And this is when Eric Stoltz was still on the film.
I do not know.
I don't know either.
I don't have multiple answers to.
Nick, you're really good with improv.
Have something, Nick?
No, I don't have anything.
It was Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall. I think used it part of the concept later on in an Indiana Jones film. Marty gets the DeLorean out to an atomic bomb test site and drives 88 miles an hour underneath the bomb as it's being lowered to get the 1.21 gigawatts. I remember the movie at the theater down the road from the clock tower is playing The Atomic Kid. I was tying in with that scene. After they fired Eric Stoltz after 7 weeks or whatever shooting, Sid Sheinberg, head of production, I believe at Universal, came and said, you want to use Michael J. Fox, you got to cut $1 million off your budget. So they cut that whole scene.
Oh,
wow.
And Andrew Probert actually took the scene out of the first film script and storyboarded it, and has a beautiful PowerPoint presentation with sound effects and everything that we did on our cruise, Back to the Future cruise.
Cool.
That is really cool.
That is amazing.
Well, sir, you have earned a book, Custodians of the Cosmos, and we'll make sure that Drayton puts some writing in the front of it for you. So we'll get him to autograph it, and then we'll also send you one of these handy dandy mugs as well.
We love prizes.
So yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can people go to find out more about your acting work and what you're doing now?
Well, if you don't mind, we have to stay outside, but come on over.
All right.
That would be nice.
You can follow me on Twitter at JEFWEISSMAN, at Jeff Weissman, 1F, on Instagram at Jeffrey J. Let's see, is it? Yeah. Jeffrey James Weissman. Pretty sure that's right. On Instagram. On the World Wide Web, I have a kind of a funky old website. You can write me actually through it, jeffreyweissman.com. And if you want, if you're a big Back to the Future fan or have one in your family or friends and you want an autographed picture, I can use the money. Just write me through jeffreyweissman.com and I'll send you samples of what I have available, even some Pizza Hut wrappers.
There you go.
That wrapper or an action figure. But
there you go.
This one.
Not that one. That one's pretty cool.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'll make sure that the guys put those in the description so that people can find you and follow your work.
Thank you.
Now, we want to remind everybody that subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to ensure that we get more amazing guests like Jeffrey Weissman here, so that you have funny moments to listen to, great stories. And so that we have more great stories from guys like Jeff. It really helps. So please subscribe. It's going to do more than you can understand. And also, we want to make sure that you go to Twitter and Instagram, check out Jeff's work, and follow him there. He's got some fun stuff online for you guys.
I want to mention also the beard is being grown to play Simon Wheeler, who tells Mark Twain the story about the jumping frogs in Calaveras County.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
And as soon as I film that, I'm shaving the beard and keeping the mustache and turning around and playing Mark Twain.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So
in the same production?
Yes. I'm developing Mark Twain's American history.
Nice.
So cool.
All right, cool. Also want to remind you guys that if you're not happy with the content of today's video, all you have to do is submit in single form, of course, to our Chief Complaint Officer, George McFly. After consulting with his car wax consultant, Biff Tannen, George will demand that the offending party hang upside down for 15 minutes per complaint in the back brace that he had to use in Back to the Future 2.
Yes, and remember, if you have a complaint, this is the guy that you're complaining about.
Exactly, that guy, not the bearded fellow you see in front of you.
Well, thanks again.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Delightful meeting you all, and I'll see you in the future.
All right,
or in the past,
or in the depending on how it goes.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. This has been funny science fiction.
Stay well, passionate.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt Crewman number 43. he'll know that when he puts on the red shirt to join Marty to his trip to 1955, 18 minutes before the school dance, that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back and his tux.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySci-Fi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.